Welcome back to Spitballin Cards. In today's episode, we're talking about Bowman Draft, which we're excited about. It is released at a pretty high price point, but we'll discuss that a little bit later in this video. In this video, you have me, Scott, we have Chris, we have Jeff, and we have Phil. It's 8:30 a.m. for Chris and Jeff. They were willing to hop on early, so I'm sure Chris is drinking coffee instead of alcohol right now, but who knows with Chris? You never know. But other than that, how y'all doing?
Good. Happy to be back. Happy to be back on top, Scott.
There we go. I love it. Phil is a good bottom, right, Phil? Look at you down there.
Hey, with me on top and Phil on bottom, I can tell you guys one thing. If history is any indication, it's going to be a quick video.
Oh, gosh. All right. I think we need to move on from this one. All right. So, Bowman Draft. It's a brand new product. There's not much content out there. Phil, who's in this set? Who's not in this set? And let's talk about that first.
Well, the product is set to release, by the way, on December 4th. So we saw the pre-sale window open up last week. Who's in the product? We have, I think, 8 of the top 10 draft picks. Everybody except for Charlie Condon and one other guy, probably a pitcher. So the clear top 2 in this product right now are going to be the number 1 overall pick. That was Travis Bazzana. He is a second baseman in the Guardians organization, and he might move to, I believe, center field at some point. He's got a pretty good hit tool. He did develop his power in his, I think, junior from the league from sophomore to junior year with the Badgers. And could be good. But the issue is that he's got experience, probably like 120 or so plate appearances right now in high A, and he wasn't that good. And the clear consensus number 2 guy in this product is going to be Jack Caglione, big-bodied. I'm sure Chris is a fan of him. He's probably already seen his squat workouts and stuff, but knows how to use that lower half. He's hit the ball 500 plus feet. He's like 250 pounds, big-bodied first baseman, but he's a first baseman, right? There was a nickname for him, Jack Tani, because he was a two-way player in college, and he could actually throw the ball up to 100 miles per hour. And that's another guy that struggled quite a bit. I think the knock on Jack Tani is that he's got a high chase rate, and he did in college ball, even though he had like a 760 career slugging percentage with Florida, right? He does swing and miss quite a bit. So is he going to be able to make the adjustments, or are we going to see Joey Gallo part 2? He already has one thing working against him. He's a first baseman. And I think the hobby's kind of wisened up in, avoiding the players that come in as first baseman or switch maybe later in the minor leagues or when they get to professional ball, sort of like what Torkelson did with okay, let's manage our expectations, because that's kind of a little bit of a war killer. And we already know out of the gate that you can only be so athletic as a first baseman, right?
One challenge with first baseman in general versus someone like, this is a poor example, and I know it's just the first player I thought of, but like even a Jackie Bradley Jr. is his bat can develop, right? He's out of the league now, but when he's a prospect, you're banking on his bat developing. But at the meantime, he's a great defensive fielder and he's quick, and so he has a lot of value outside of that. But then we see with someone like Spencer Torkelson that if you don't have anything aside from the bat, which does not always translate, it can really be ugly quick. But here is Caglione. Is that how you say his name, Phil?
Caglione is how
Caglione?
That's how people pronounce it. I thought Manfred got it wrong, but then, that's how everybody's saying it.
He fixed his strikeout rate, whatever year was in 2024 with Florida, but you're right, it could be a problem. But here are his stats. This is a fantastic year, right, for him. So that's the potential you're playing for. We're not talking about Charlie Condon too much in this episode, but I think it's worth noting that he's not in this product. He was the Rockies' first round third overall pick, and he had a fantastic year at Georgia. Hit 433, 1.5 OPS with 37 home runs in 60 games. So he was going to do great. He has struggled really bad in high A. Travis Bazzana, he's also struggled, and then Caglione struggled. So it's just interesting to see all of these top players struggle out of the gate. So,
random Caglione note: if you're in a dynasty fantasy league and you want to add him to your watch list, you're thinking about drafting him, ESPN currently lists him as a starting pitcher. That is where you will find him in ESPN fantasy leagues. So maybe ESPN thinks he might get some time on the mound. I don't know, but it took me a minute to find him. Trying to add him to my watch list for next year because there's some Instagram videos of him with a wood bat absolutely cracking like five. I think they said 503 feet was like the estimate of that one. And you're right. This dude's a brick house. He's a large boy. So I'm excited to see what he can do.
Would you want to see him pitch?
If he can, sure.
Sometimes, wouldn't that be cool?
If he can't hit, might as well, yeah.
That's going to be the story of his career. Can't hit, we turn him into a pitcher. Okay, anybody else want to talk about Phil?
Not really at this time. To Scott's point, there's another guy named Nick Kurtz, which that might be interesting. That might be 5th overall-ish, Oakland, and he's going to be in the product. He's a hitter. I don't know too much about him, but to Scott's point about all these guys struggling right now, this wasn't the same case as last year where, Paul Skeens, people were kind of pissed off at the time that, oh, no, like we missed out on Dylan Cruz. And instead, Paul Skeens is in draft. And they were like, oh, he's just a pitcher, but he could be really good. I think people at the time still acknowledged that he was probably the best prospect pitcher since Steven Strasburg, but it wasn't enough for the hobby. But Wyatt Langford did have good numbers at the time. One of the things that I find is interesting and I think important to understand is that there is, over recent years, pretty solid track record for these college hitters to make the transition to deep in minor leagues and or to figure it out at the major league level. We saw it with Bobby Witt, Corbin Carroll, Gunnar Henderson, Allie Rushman. Of course, I'm going back like 5 years or so, but there's been a number of guys that have figured it out more so than a lot of the international talents that would find their way into Bowman Chrome.
Yeah, and at worst, for these big league teams, they're just at least league replacement players, so it's cheaper for them to have them on the roster versus paying for somebody. Then they have upside. So speaking of Wyatt Langford, I just looked him up while you were talking. I'm surprised how good his numbers were last year. Like, I know he figured it out, but 3.9 WAR with 16 home runs and a 111 OPS plus, not bad for how bad he started. Believe it or not, I saw one of those home runs live in Arlington. That was cool.
Was it in September? Because I think that's by far his best.
It was. It was in September. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's skewing his stats a little bit. You know, the kind of the pitching competition he faced in September. So I question. Somebody was asking me, "Hey, should I buy his PSA 10 Bowman Chrome autograph?" Well, first of all, the population on his base Bowman Chrome auto first non-numbered is like 700 plus. It's the highest I've ever seen. So
wait, base auto is 700 plus PSA 10.
It's around 700. I'm telling you.
Wow,
he must check. So I'm like, maybe hold out for like a lower graded blue or something like that. And also, there's a potential risk factor that a lot of what he figured out wasn't against like true major league pitching. He's a little bit older, so he's got to figure it out. I think he just turned 23, or he will soon in November.
He's basically the same age as Julio Rodriguez, and if I had to pick one of those two to invest in, I feel like it's pretty clear Julio has a lot more potential. So nothing against Wyatt Langford. But anyways, you're right. Look at his September. He had a great month. And then everything else, he had a good June. Not bad.
Are there legend first Bowman Chrome autos in Bowman Draft?
Ooh, that's a great question. Let me look.
I haven't checked. I've not looked at the checklist as I've only been awake for about 8 minutes, but
yeah, I know the big chase last year were those Brady autographs, right?
Yeah, with Brady,
like that in here.
Ooh. Yeah, who cares? But yeah, the Brady chase obviously
that
was a big deal for 2023.
Yeah,
I don't think there is. One note, Phil, you called the Oregon State Beavers some random animal. So I wanted to.
I believe you called them the Badgers.
The Badgers is what you called them.
Caught my eye.
We gotcha. I wasn't going to mention it, but I thought I'd call it out. But no, there are not legend autographs in this product. There's actually not that many. At least I'm going to share my screen and look at the checklist from Beckett real quick. But as of right now, we have the Bowman Draft Night autographs, which, by the way, what do we think of these? There's like an Aaron Judge Draft Night autograph out there, which is like an image variation of his Bowman Chrome auto. Do we like those? We'll talk about that in a second. In action autographs, and then the Chrome prospects, 99 different players. Is that good or bad compared to historically, Phil? Do you know?
Good. Well, kind of good.
And then
kind of good because over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen, I think the range has been 90 to 110. So it's actually less than a couple of years.
Oh, cool.
So this is another example of Fanatics making sure they're not destroying Bowman Draft. You can say that they've hurt every other product by dilution, overprinting, etc. But this one, I think they understand what they have. They understand what they have so much where they change the names of Jumbo and Super Jumbo. So now to get the configuration that has 3 autographs in it, they're calling it a hobby box. And the old Super Jumbo with 5 autos is now the Jumbo. So I'm reading between the lines here, and maybe this is tinfoil hat, but I think that next year they'll cut an autograph from the hobby box because it's just a hobby box, right?
Mm.
They're not calling it a Jumbo anymore. And that'll be the beginning of them destroying Bowman Draft. But I mean, the trajectory it's on is much brighter than Topps Chrome or really any other release that Topps has. So the pre-sale prices, a lot of people weren't big fans of it. $520 for the hobby, and I think $740 for the Jumbo, the old Super Jumbo, which is higher than last year. So last year, the pre-sale opened up at $480 for the 3 autograph version, and Super I don't really pay attention to, but certainly less than whatever it is at this year, like $680 or something is probably where it was at. But you did get a discount for buying a case. So if your effective box price was $453 for buying the 3 autograph version of Draft last year. So that's like a jump of, I don't know, like 14%. And then it's actually more meaningful than that because if you look at 2022, I think those were pre-selling at about $400. So that's like 15% on top of another 15%, which people pay attention to. It's sort of like how inflation is a very sensitive economic topic and issue for a lot of people. These spikes in prices will piss off people more than dilution of product by like 15%, increasing print runs here and there. Because what we're seeing with other products, Cosmic, Logo Fractor, yeah, the price is the same, but maybe they doubled production. And I feel like that isn't as noticeable as like a 15% jump in price, but the product's staying the same. So, yeah, there's no Brady chase this year. Yeah, some of these prospects are underwhelming right now, and there's no Paul Skeens, but that's sort of like hindsight 2020 at release. This last year's Bowman Draft went up to like 525 to 550 pretty quickly, even before people realized how good Paul Skeens was. And the whole like Libby Dunn connection was something that they truly valued as like, oh, this could be like good for long-term appeal. But Wyatt Langford was the guy before Skeens was the guy. And of course, again, the Brady chase. So I don't know. Bowman Draft. So paying about $170 per autograph. It stings a little bit if you have to pay the sales tax. I think these sold out within a few hours from the Topps website. Sold out. I would be shocked if people were able to get this for under $500 later, whether that be release week, a month after release, or 2 months after release. But I think a lot of this also depends on how people respond to Bazzana, Caglione. A lot, but not really a lot. It's still Bowman Draft at the end of the day. There still will be guys that bubble up. This is still the most sought after release of the year, except for maybe Series 1, in my opinion. And it's still very, very desirable for not just breakers, but also folks that want to open some for their own. Like I've set up at shows and I sell a ton of Bowman Draft. Everybody's looking for it. Sometimes Super Jumbos or the new Jumbo. But it's just a product a lot of people like. And if you compare the per auto price versus Topps Chrome Update, it's not too different. And with Topps Chrome Update, you're probably getting a sticker auto of a nobody. 150 auto checklist. Yeah, Paul Skeens in there. Yeah, that might not be a sticker auto, but like, and there could be some additional value from inserts and maybe some parallels. But
here's the question. What would you rather have for a 10-year hold if you're buying one sealed wax product? Feels like Topps Chrome Update's more safe. Because, yes, you're getting nobody sticker autographs, but you do have good rookies and established stars versus Bowman Draft, where maybe one guy is valuable and the rest of the product could be hot garbage. What would you take, Phil, from your perspective?
Ooh, I think you kind of answered the question there with the floor is with Topps Chrome Update. We know some of these guys are, I wouldn't say they're proven commodities. We've seen a year of experience with a lot of these rookies, if that. But you don't know if any of the guys are going to make it for Bowman Draft. You assume they will. And there's so many different guys. And there's so many different guys that will have value for the next 12 to 24 months because this is where you're getting the most first Bowman cards. The most first Bowman auto cards is from this product. So if I was holding this product for, I'd say 3 years, that tends to be like the window before draft kind of, there's like a fork in the road. Either we know that there's not much in here and there's no saving grace sort of players to like keep this propped up for a while. Or is this going to go the path of 2019 Bowman Draft where it's now like $650 plus per box because it has Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Riley Green, Corbin Carroll, etc. Most likely it'll be somewhere in between, a complete zero and having a few of those players in it.
How much is a box of Bowman Draft right now?
Well, it'd be hard to find them right now other than like the ridiculous eBay kind of pre-sale prices from people that pre-order from Topps that want to collect their, their margin after fees from eBay. And a lot of those people paid taxes on the Topps website. So you would have paid $520 plus tax.
And then so that's for the hobby variation, right?
Yeah.
So how much is the super the jumbo?
Yeah, it's $740.
Okay. So with that being said, you can get a 2019 Bowman Draft with all those stars you just mentioned. Super jumbo with 5 autographs for $981. That's the first one I saw. Maybe they're cheaper.
Yeah,
that feels like the better move. There's one for $880. That's a regular jumbo. Like what? I don't know. Our price. How do we feel about it? Is it the risk reward worth it, or do you want something more mature where you have like a Gunnar Henderson potential?
It depends on what you're doing with it. Are you going to open it right away? Or do you want to flip it within 3 months? Or do you want to hold it for 10 years? If you're holding it for 10 years, you take 2019. If you want to open it now for profit, you take the newer product. There's just going to be more guys in there that'll pay off, even though 2019 was stacked. I just know this from watching people open older product.
It's tough.
Yeah.
Which would you take, Jeff?
Well, it's kind of disappointing. You can see here that a lot of Bowman Draft from previous years, it was my favorite product, and I would always at least buy 1 or 2 boxes to hold and buy a box or 2 to open. Well, that eventually became 1 box just to open because the price was increasing. And now, as of last year, I haven't bought any, and I don't think I'm going to buy again this year. It's too much of a risk reward proposition for me. I mean, you can get a heck of a single card for $500 or $700. So I don't know, if I was given that choice, I would buy the older one because I'd be into it more for the long term and security. But yeah, I agree with Phil. If you want to open it right away and flip those guys, you go with the newer product.
Yeah, I personally, I think this is, I feel like I said this before, but I feel like this is the most obvious, like non-rip product for me. That's a lot of money for a box. And if you look at like the top 100 draft picks every year, how many turn into something a decade later? Like the odds are very, very, very low. I would much rather have that 2019 box. Bobby Witt's in there. So at least there's that. If I'm buying this, I'm buying it to keep it sealed and hope that, one of these guys turns into a superstar. But there's no way in hell I'm ripping a box for what, $500 and some odd dollars or $780. There's just no way. So, absolutely not.
I like that perspective. Let's look at the 10 years ago.
Bobby Witt is 2020, by the way.
Even though he was
drafted.
2019. I meant a Gunnar. Gunner's in 2019. Yeah. Sorry.
This is 10 years ago. Let's look at the top prospects. Byron Buxton. He didn't really turn out. Xander Bogaerts, probably not hobby turnout. Tavares, he passed away. Miguel Sano's not in the big leagues anymore. Archie Bradley was a relief pitcher. Tyon Walker was one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. Javier Baez is one of the worst contracts in baseball history. Carlos Correa is not bad.
He's Chris good, Bryant, but the hobby doesn't care.
Yeah, Carlos Correa, there's a chance, someday he has major value. Chris Bryant, one of the worst contracts in baseball history as a Rockies fan. He had a very interesting peak. Makes you wonder if he'll carry value with Cubs fans in the long run. I would tend to think maybe with Cubs fans, but no one else. Lindor, probably the best one on this list. Great job, Lindor. Noah Syndergaard, Addison Russell, he did a great job for the Cubs, and then that's it. Gregory Polanco, John Gray, like Nick Castellanos. You can get the idea. Like, these are all names we know in the big leagues. But there's Corey Seager at 34, but even he doesn't have major hobby value. No. It just is very tough to pick. Like, all these players are contributing in the big league level right now, a lot of them at least, but none of them are.
Hey, there's Mookie. You rolled past Mookie.
Where is he?
I can't believe your eyes didn't just lock on there.
Jeez.
I thought that was the whole reason we picked this year.
In the 60,
Mookie, 62. So, like, you have maybe what? would you say 3-4 guys in the top 100 that may be worth having? Is that fair?
Right.
Any given top 100 list? About
Yeah,
what? That's
and
the
not
same-
all those are going to be in a product either.
Yeah, that
Yep.
the information is actually you're positioning it to make wax look better than it is, because of that list, a lot of those guys are drafted not just to different products throughout the year, but different years worth of products. So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Like,
Lindor's in 2011, as an example. Correa's in 2013. Mookie.
Right, you're not going to be able to buy a box with that could get a Betts
All of
first
them.
Bowman and Lindor and Correa first Bowman all in the same box. That'd probably be a nice box, actually.
The 24 Bowman, just regular Bowman, has Lindor and Chris Bryant. Not Lindor. Mookie and Chris Bryant and DeGrom, but DeGrom doesn't have autographs. So, like, that's a good one, but, like, still has a very high chance to open that box. You're going to get wrecked. So,
yeah. And that's not even Chris Bryant's first. Chris Bryant's first is in 2013 without the first. Then in 2014, he's got the first. And it's
Topps really screwed up
and
Chris Bryant, man.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, explain what happened, Chris.
Well,
If you
yeah,
wouldn't
Chris Bryant's first Bowman Chrome Auto was in 2013, and that's the one year that they didn't put the first on there. And then in 2014, he also has prospect autos, and they did put a first on it. So if you see a first on Chris Bryant, that's actually not his first. And it's crazy because he came up and was Rookie of the Year, MVP, World Series champion within like 3 or 4 years.
So I think there's more to that story. I'm pretty sure the 2014 came out first, which sounds dumb.
What?
And they put the 2013 into packs the next year in 2014.
Oh, yeah.
They did something stupid like that. They did the same thing with Carlos Correa. His 2015 Topps Chromatograph was issued in 2016 packs.
Yeah.
They did weird crap like that back then.
Yeah.
So that's the whole dilemma. Do you want the 2014 first that came out first, or do you want the 2013 that doesn't have the first logo that came out second? So it's just, they really didn't do a great
The good
job.
news for us is Chris Bryant's now terrible, so no one wants any of his cards. So that works out. That problem took care of itself.
I love pulling up his stats as a Rockies fan. You want to get
one last thing, bad context of the last thing we were talking about was Bubba O'Reilly from Blowout Forums says that of the guys on the checklist for 2024 Bowman Draft, roughly 7 players are on like a top 100 list. So where you were showing us just like that whole list.
7 out of basically 7%, because there's 100 prospects, 7 of them. So,
and you wonder if they sign fewer cards. Like, I bet they have fewer base autos than the late guys.
The fact that I still am going back to that Wyatt Langford having 700 PSA 10 Bowman autographs. I believe you. I'm not challenging that.
Actually, it might be 650. It
doesn't matter. Anything above 500 is a lot for a base PSA 10, right? But also we can see the difference now between like last decade. We all submitted to Beckett. Now we're submitting to PSA. So we're probably going to see that, and that's going to continue. But
Chris Freeman, by contrast, has like under 40.
And how many? He probably would have had over 150 or 200 if he would have been a prospect now, right? If they wouldn't have submitted to BGS. It's hard because they were off-centered that year. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Chris Bryant in the last 3 full seasons has 17 home runs. And
he makes Mike Trout look like an Iron Man. He really does.
And a total WAR for 3 years of negative 1.3. So
wow. And he made like $80 million during that time.
Probably more. Let's look at his salaries just so I can have some pain. Anyways.
Well, while you're looking that up, you were asking before, I would much rather take a shot at 2024 Topps Chrome update. I know it's the price is about half, I guess, for a hobby box. You only get 1 auto, but you have a chance at those MLB debut patches. And I think there's 250. So I'll take my lottery ticket chance at pulling one of those bad boys versus this Bowman Draft box where I won't have heard. It's very possible I won't have heard of a single player in that box.
Yeah. So right now, for those watching, and by the time this gets posted, I don't know what day it'll be. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. Topps Chrome update. There's a Fanatics drop where you can enter for the chance to win a Topps Chrome update hobby or jumbo. The prices are $200 and $420. I think I don't really like the prices for either of those, and that's
in the right to buy, right, Phil?
Yeah, the right to buy and then pay sales tax. I think $420. I don't know if you're looking for like to flip these things. I think the jumbo's safe. If you're looking to open them, I think it's pretty close. So about 40% of the cost of Bowman Draft, right? From regular hobby to regular hobby.
Oof.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. One thing I always think is intriguing with Bowman product is we love the Bowman Chromatograph, but we hate the Bowman Chrome first base card and parallels. Do we ever see that switching, or will that never happen with the way rookie cards are? Like, I know this topic's probably beat to death, but do we think that could happen? Out of curiosity in the future.
Yeah, I love the parallels, the Bowman first parallels, but they've as you said, they haven't really caught on. I don't know if they will.
We're talking non-autos, right?
Non-autos. We pay out the wazoo for, but the parallels, the base cards.
Outside of the golds, I've seen like the non-auto golds seem to get, a lot of attention, and the reds, but the blues and the regular refractors, the purples,
there's some great color matches with the blues too, with so many of the uniforms, but they just don't get the same kind of attention.
If you go back like 6, 7, 8 years, I think what we saw, comparing a blue first non-auto versus a blue first auto, I think what you'd see is that the auto would outsell it by about 10x. So obviously you can't do this with the base, because the base is printed to the moon for the non-auto. And even the auto, it changes a lot from year to year, or a little bit, but that's substantial if looking at this across like 6, 7, 8, 10 years. I think what you see now is closer to like 6 or 7x, comparing like a true orange auto to a true orange not auto. And it's going to vary a little bit. There's not one set like multiplier. So for those watching, don't use this as a rule. But what that shows is that the gap has closed a little bit in time. And I think this has to do with just people just going after lower numbered stuff and original stuff that has a legacy. So like True Blue first, pretty sweet card. Doesn't have ink on it. It's not a Topps Chrome rookie, but pretty sweet card. They do a good job with them. There's only one set, unless you also add in Mega Box and all that other stuff.
Meh. I do think it's interesting when players have their first Bowman Chrome before, like the year before, or we'll just say in a different year. Like Freeman's first Bowman Chrome was 07, and the autos are in 09. I know Devers' first Bowman Chrome was 14. His autos are the next year in 15. So when the year is different, so the design's different, sometimes, I don't know if maybe that might adjust the multiplier a little bit. I have seen, obviously, all of Freeman's stuff is ticked up, but I see a couple of his, the first Bowman Blues at its 07 are selling at, I don't know. The prices are high. There's a gold up there right now for $1,500. It looks cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, because there's some people that really want that first on, and for Devers, you're not going to get an auto with the first on. So if you want a first, you're going to be looking for his gold or his orange parallels. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill is an interesting one, because you'll get it with a first on it. You'll get it from a previous year, but it won't be the right player on the card. So,
it's like the law with Merrill.
That's a great example. That's just really funny. Yeah, that it's not him. That's great.
Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah. Yep. Carlos Beltran kind of flashbacks.
Okay, so last thing I want to ask you about before we call this episode a wrap is in regards to the draft night autos. You kind of mentioned it really quick before we dove into price points, but I'm going to share my screen one more time and we're going to look at this real fast. But we have these draft night autographs. Aaron Judge has one. I was looking at that when I was looking to buy a big Aaron Judge card. There's 4 players, Hagen Smith, the Caglione, Nick Kurtz, and Travis Bazzana. So a lot of big players, right? Big players that you would like. What do we think of these? Historically, there weren't image variations. Now we have image variation autographs too of this, most of the same players. These 3 have them. Well, do we like the draft autographs? Do we like the image variation autographs better? Is there a preference? Is first the only one that matters? What do we think here?
You know me well enough to know that I like a different image. I like an image variation. My one complaint about the image variation autographs, because we've gotten them before, like Kelnick has one, right, Jeff? Unfortunately, that one doesn't matter as much as we thought it would.
Without a first on.
Yes, that's what I don't like. Even if it's in the same product as the first auto, they take the first logo off of the image variation autos. So I feel like it might be cool, and the image could be different, and it could even be better. But down the line, if this player becomes great, that card's going to require an explanation to sell it. And that just makes it unfortunately, it hurts it. It hurts it a lot. In my
Would
opinion.
you ever buy one?
No, I would not.
As far as the draft night autos, I think it's a great idea. I just wish it'd been more consistent, right? It doesn't seem like it's something that's been used a lot. I know in other sports, the draft day or draft night autos are really successful for basketball and football. And I think it could be for baseball as well, especially if you get a guy that turns out like Aaron Judge. But again, it's one that requires a little explanation. People don't know what it is. It doesn't stand out as much as a regular Bowman Chrome auto. So I don't know. It's hard to say. And I see, looking at the checklist, they've added a lot of different autos as well, like Plasma Power Variation auto, Bowman in Action, Draft Prospect Portrait autos. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if any of those actually get legs, those insert auto.
I like that Aaron Judge draft night auto. I think it's really cool. And it's one of the cool things about it. It's numbered at 10. Is that right, Scott?
Yep, only 10.
So I feel like that's great, but it almost like hurts the card too, because people just don't know about it because they never see it.
I've seen
it comes up for sale. Yeah.
4 of the 10 have like popped up in the last few months because he had a great regular season. And they are great looking cards, and they don't have a first, but none have a first from that year. So it's no big deal, right? So it's one of those things where it's interesting. But
but the image variations, like if the picture is especially great and the image on the card sort of gains notoriety, then maybe like I'm thinking like the Acuna towel on the head card. I know that's not his first, but if that was the same year, I could see that card having value. I hate to say it, but I think, didn't the Wander variation, isn't that the only one that actually has the first, like the bat on shoulder?
Oh, I think you're right.
I think that's the only one that has first, because I remember that being a big deal for a while. But yeah, we'll see what the images are, but probably, I mean, I don't know. They better be, it's got to be a great image to matter. I'll put it that way.
Speaking of Wander Franco, he got in trouble again, just barely. He pulled a gun on somebody. Well, that's Jeff Passan said that there was an altercation where guns were pulled. So
isn't he in custody?
I thought he was in custody in the Dominican.
He's on bail waiting for his trial for abusing a 14-year-old. So what a great guy.
We should probably cut that part out.
It was sarcasm. It's a horrible person. What's that, Phil?
Invest in Wander Franco is how to sum things up.
People are still buying his cards.
Yes. I see people listing his stuff for hundreds of dollars. I'm like, what are you doing?
Why are they buying his cards? Look at this. Let's look at.
Maybe we should put Wander thumbnail up here and get all.
Maybe they just still own it. They're not buying it. I don't know.
It's amazing that people are buying this stuff.
I'd much rather buy the new Menendez brothers card, that Michael Jordan rare air card that's got them in the background that people just discovered. I'd much rather have that.
How did they just discover that? Isn't that crazy? So I was watching and look at that. You remember that Youth Invasion Wander Franco? I bet you that goes for a decent amount of money still.
Actually, check that. I'm curious.
$300. What's the ESA 10?
Wow. So it's not up. That might actually be down from, like, not when he was an innocent man and hadn't gotten in trouble yet, but that might be down since the news broke. There were like a few sales, I think, of over 300. Or it's maybe it's about flat. I don't know.
We can always trust that Phil's got his finger on the pulse of the Wander Franco market at all times.
Always.
This does not discriminate. If there's $1 to be made, you can bet he's in it.
Yep. Don't forget Phil's Felipe Vasquez PC that he's got in that box behind him.
Uget Urbina, he did something, right? Raul Mondesi, I collect them all, yeah.
Phil's a Karl Malone truther.
Yes, I was going to say there's got to be a Karl Malone auto on that wall behind him somewhere.
He has like 7 green PMG Malones. And
a lot of our audience probably owns some Pete Rose stuff, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I see a Woody Allen DVD back there. I mean, he's got a nice collection.
All of our people.
Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
So one last note about Bowman Draft. It does appear that they copied over a lot of the same changes with regards to the parallels, non-auto and auto parallels. So some of the lunars and the black refractor auto, a lot of the stuff that they had already shown us with Bowman and Bowman Chrome of this year. We'll see it in Bowman Draft.
Great. Okay, it's a good place to cut. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you in the next video.